Meeting to order, May the 11th, regular council meeting. There's an agenda. Anybody have anything to add to the agenda? Go ahead, Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. Mr. Warden, under 6C Community Hall Grants, I'd like to add an option 3.
And option 3?
Yep. Please and thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, the agenda stands approved. Any conflict of interest, you can always bring it up during the meeting. We have one regret, and that's Councillor Donaldson. As you all are aware, you're always invited to stand if you need to. Stand and move. We have no presentations. The adoption of minutes, we have the April 27, 2023 special council meeting minutes. Any errors or omissions in that one? Hearing none. The minutes stand approved. April 27, 2023 executive council meeting minutes. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, those minutes stand approved as presented. Grant approval, grants organization, spring 2023, and there's an attachment. We all had the opportunity to go over this. We all sent, and I guess it was the staff went through them, and they came up with a recommendation here. The recommendation brings us right to the 37,450. So did you have something? Okay, I have Chantal.
Just briefly, I just wanted to make note that on the spreadsheet, if you notice, the averages did come up above the ask, which is the reason for the coming down to the 37,450. And I tried to play with the averages and pay special attention to the Argyle asks, as that's what your policy states. And so that's just just wanted to give you a background on where it came from. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, Councillor Stratt.
So move to accept the grants organizations.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on these or any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Extraordinary grants, the Sea Kayak Symposium. Recommended motion to approve the extraordinary grant in the amount of $5,000 to the Sea Kayak Symposium. This was discussed at our meeting, and unless there's any questions, we need a motion to approve this. We kind of all agreed that this would be the amount because that was their ask at the meeting, but if there's anybody who has any questions or wants to make something. Moved by Councillor D'Entremont, seconded by Councillor Digdon. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. The Rotary Rib Fest, basically the same thing. Recommended motion to approve a sponsorship to the Yarmouth Rotary Rib Fest in the amount of $2,500 for the 2023-24 fiscal year. And again, this was discussed at our meeting, and it seemed like we were all pretty much in favor of this. But if there's anybody who's not or whatever, but if anybody can make a motion to this, and then we can discuss it.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Councillor Boudreau, seconded by Deputy Warden. Any discussion or comments on that? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Community hall grants. Do we pass this on? We've had a couple of, yeah, I know. You're going to add, Pardon me?
Rails to trails.
Oh, Rails to Trail, I skipped one, sorry. Recommended motion is to approve a financial contribution in the amount of $150 per kilometer of trails in the municipality of Argyle for a total of $70,050 for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. Again, this was all discussed at our meeting, and it seemed that was a recommendation that was done there. So moved by Councillor Bork, seconded by Councillor Digdon. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Carried. Brings us to community hall grants. And there was a recommendation here to have to put a third option. We've got two options, okay, so do we ask for what the option is? What is the option that you want? Can you turn your mic on, please?
Oh, sorry. Yes, by all means. Now, thank you very much, Mr. Warden. Okay, so I guess we've had some discussion on this already. We had problems with the computer entering it in, all kinds of stuff. So working our way backwards here, maybe. I just got on the phone yesterday and put some stuff together. I'm just going to quote a few people. I'll add the politicians are required here to resolve this for sure, and that which you had in an email today. And by all means, Mr. Jean-Bernard d'Entremont, who is a very good volunteer down in the Pubnico area and has been a long time Legion volunteer. And that I talked with him yesterday about what I was going to propose here this evening. He put a quick nickel is better than a slow dime, and he laughed. But anyway, and what I'm going to propose here this evening, I'm just going to work backwards, and you're going to see why, and that I'm doing it this way. The cons, and that because I am going to make an motion when we get to the top of my page here. The cons is that the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 66 will wait one extra year, but they have agreed to that as an executive. The pros, if this motion goes through here this evening, is the Plymouth Hall gets $10,000. The Hubbard Point Community Hall receives $8,581, I believe it is. Argyle Council contents all parties involved, and the Royal Canadian Legion will pick up $10,000 by waiting 1 year, and waiting for next year. And we often hear about the Argyle way and trying to make everybody happy and all that. So I figured this would be a way to make everyone happy. So I would like to make a motion that we table the ask of $10,000 from the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 66 with the understanding that they will be eligible for a $10,000 community hall grant in May of 2024.
And that's your motion?
That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councillor d'Entremont.
So there would be an amount left over in the 20,000 that we usually have, okay? So is there anything we can do with that money, or do we just leave it in there?
CAO.
I was right into a piece of ice when you asked me the question, Councillor. And you know what? There's still a piece in my mouth, so it might crunch as I'm speaking. The difficulty, the quick answer is yes, there's always something you can do with that. The options are that you can just simply reduce the amount that we're bringing in from the operating reserve, so that you just don't, you're planning not to spend it on anything, and you're planning on reducing the amount that you're taking from prior year surpluses. That's an option. The option to fund another club is less than desirable, and that is addressed in the recommendation. Well, we've recommended two options, and we exhausted that at two because the rest of them required political intervention, which clearly happened here in the motion. So if we give the rest to someone, then we might deny them the ability to get additional funding under this program. So that's the difficulty with doing a partial with any unit, is that you get that and that's the end of it. It can be allocated to other priorities, such as, I mean, name it. I mean, it could be it could be for signage, it could be for fundraising, it could be for support for social aid. There's all sorts of ways that you could utilize that funds for another purpose. That would require a bit more detail, I think. What we're really talking about is about 15, I guess 1,800. So whatever it is, it's not considerable. I hope that answers.
Councillor Surratt.
I'd just like to say that's a pretty good change of things. Certainly wasn't expecting that tonight, but I'll give credit to West Pubnico Legion for coming up with that idea and being selfless. Might be the word selfless in doing what they're doing. Certainly wasn't expecting that, but a great community. They're thinking of the big picture by hearing this to me, and that to me sounds good. That's just my comments. Thank you.
Councillor Sonia.
Thank you. I'm just curious, in that motion, does that mean it's an automatic application, or do they have to apply at the right time?
Can you? That's a question, yes. What would they have to do in order to get that? Can we say now, approve one in advance, basically, for next year? Or would they have to reapply, but we could guarantee them that they're going to get it, or can we do that? Oh, I gotta turn you on.
Well, according to the policy, I don't think we can guarantee anyone eligibility. However, what we can do is, as a council, is outside of policy, you can decide how many grants are issued. So let me just illustrate an example that hopefully answers your question. If you had 3 applications next year, one of which is the Legion, and the other 2, so our responsibility under policy is to evaluate. So the other 2 applications, let's just pretend it was Club Acadien and Quinnen Club Social, or whatever. It's not Club des Audacieux. Many of my relatives will strike me down for not getting that one right the first time, being half a Quinnen. Anyway, so let's say, and both of them are in desperate need. Their evaluation is excellent, and in both cases, they would exceed the project that the West Pubnico would be submitting, which I presume would be the same project. That could happen. Okay, so then what you have is much like in this situation, when you do the evaluation, there are winners and there are losers, and it may be a clear that West Pubnico could be a clear number 3. By making this motion, what you might be doing is making a decision at that point to increase the amount by 10,000, because typically you're at 20. You could make the decision to go up to 30 to support what the intention of the motion is today. So the policy doesn't allow you a guarantee, but your decision to set the amount would. Okay. Now that may not happen. You may only have 1 application, or you may have 2, or they may be the number 1 application. I'm just saying, worst case scenario, you got more applications than you have money, and they're number 3. That's the worst case scenario. So I think in that instance, I hear that you would that by passing this motion, that you would make that commitment to increase the amount to accommodate that request.
Only if there were more than 2.
Correct. That's correct. That's the worst.
Only if they didn't score in the evaluation.
Correct. You could have 3 applications, and West Pubnico could be number 1. No issue.
And that would be for that 1 year only?
Well, it would be correct, and it would be the one and only time any one of those clubs would be eligible for funding, because they're only eligible once until all of them are supported. So the policy won't guarantee it, but you have the power to guarantee it, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Councillor Digdon.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Although the policy would just about guarantee it, as far as I'm concerned, because they would be the last hall to apply for funding under this policy. All the other halls have applied for funding and received funding.
CO.
I believe that every hall would have asked for funding when we've had the initial outlay of 15,000. So what you say is true when you put both policies together. However, when the second policy of 10,000 each, that brought everybody back to zero. So if they didn't apply in the first round, which they didn't, it doesn't preclude other clubs to ask a second time. So it's like a new round of funding. So if it was all one round, you're quite right. Actually, in fact, nobody would be eligible. Only the West Pubnico Legion would be eligible because it would have been the only one that didn't get money. So I think, I don't think it's, to be honest, I don't think it's actually going to be an issue for
Okay.
West Pubnico. I think that based on how you operate and if you're committed to doing this, I think that, and I'm speaking a little bit for council here, but I'm saying if somebody is good enough to wait, council doesn't forget. And so it doesn't actually, that to me is more meaningful than any policy because you can set the amount, right?
Thank you very much, and that's exactly why I put it this way here tonight. Because honestly, I didn't spend, we're doing this in good faith, and that I've been on the phone with, up till 10 o'clock last night. And we want everybody, it's like I said when I ran for council, and that, yes, I'm there to support my District 8, but at the same time, I'm there to support the municipality as a whole. So I hope there's no roadblocks put up for next year and say, oh no, that 10,000 can't go to the Legion, because we are doing it in good faith. We are going to be looking and that for equipment come March or so, because to get some of this equipment, you can't get it within a month or two for some of these places. And so that's why I made this motion. So I'm making it very clear that's what I'm after. Thank you.
So we have a motion on the floor. Are there any more discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, carried. And I would like to also commend the Legion for doing what they're doing. I felt bad, and it kind of put the Harbor's Point Club in the same position where last year they didn't apply in the right category. Actually, they meant to, but it just filled out the wrong form, and they were told that they should apply this year. Now, as our CEO said, they could have been left out this year based on the qualifications or the review that the committee did. So I'm sure they'll be happy to know that they will be getting that this year.
There, I commend the Legion 100%, but they done it with a promise from me that I'll definitely be going after $10,000 and getting $10,000. Because if not, we got a problem. I got a problem. Thank you, folks.
Okay. So the next item is
We still have to pass for the other two, right?
for the other two what?
Like for the community halls, because that was really just about.
No,
Oh,
the
does
motion
that
said,
cover
the
it?
motion
Okay.
covered both the
Covered the
Plymouth
other two.
and the Harbor's Point. It did, yes, yes. Argyle Emergency Fund. I think that was discussed at our meeting as well during deliberations for the operational budget. So I guess what it is we would be giving the money to social aids, different ones, if there are different ones on different years, a different one could get that money, and we would no longer be handling the emergency fund here. It's becoming a little bit, a lot of work for staff, and it's a totally different item, you know. I mean, it's not something that we have to do, something that we had decided that would be a good thing to do for people in need, but it's getting to the point where sometimes it's hard to regulate where it goes and how. So I guess we have a motion, and council provide various social aid organizations in the municipality of Argyle with a financial contribution of $4,000 over 5 years for a total amount of $20,000. And we would have to, after the 5 years, we would have to look at this again. Moved by Councillor Saunier. Who seconded that? Seconded by Councillor D'Entremont. All in favor, signify. Oh, I have a couple of people who want to speak here. Go ahead. Councillor Board,
Oh,
do it again.
that's okay. I was gonna make the motion, and we do have various, pretty well each community has a social aid that helps people in need. I work for the parish, and we have social aid. We have Saint Vincent Paul. There's a SAR, so I think we're covered throughout our municipality for social aid. So I support this motion.
Okay. Deputy Warden.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify because I wasn't here at that meeting.
Yes.
So if we have somebody who comes to us with a recommendation or a request, do we direct that to the social aid committee? Okay,
Yes, we do.
okay. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay. Now I don't see any green lights. Any more discussion? And if not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Where are we here? Fire Service Capital Grant Program, Lake Vaughan Fire Department. We have a request for funding through our grant program for the firemen, for the fire departments. And I see they're asking for $25,000 per year for 5 years for the purchase of a tanker, from what I can read here. Purchase a new truck. So you've all, that's something else. I don't believe we made any recommendation at the, did we make a recommendation at the last meeting? I don't believe. I think we left it to come to here to discuss this. Councillor Surratt.
Seeing what was sent to us and the discussion we had at the prior meeting, certainly that $10,000 a year for 5 years sounds like a good number to me, according to what the population is, and of 9.2%. And furthermore, they do, like our CAO or staff for the year, they do help us with mutual aid. So I'll make a motion that we move that council approve a $50,000 contribution to Lake Vaughan Fire Department, being $10,000 per year for 5 years, beginning 2023-24, ending in 2027-28.
Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Digdon. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Financial approvals. We have financial report. Again, this report, basically what we did is, we're probably not going to go through this, and I'll tell you why. At the last meeting, I know there was a couple of people that weren't here, but it's for the end of the year. If you remember, before she made her our financial officer, I guess, financial something, director of finance. Before she made her presentation, she went through this with what we had gone through, with what we had spent through the year. Now, unless someone has any questions, we would just need a motion to accept the report, unless there's any questions and they're ready to answer any questions on this, if anybody has any. But we do need a motion to accept it.
So
It's moved by Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Bork. Any questions on the financial report? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Fire operating budgets, 2023-24. Now, if I may ask, have all fire departments have they approved these? Okay, I see someone, I see Councillor Stray.
I have a question I'm not ready to make a motion, but and maybe this has been discussed, on the last item on that page, consulting fees fire review. I see 9,000 in, budget, and then it says 2022-23. So I'm wondering, so we won't, I guess my question is, we won't have the review? Maybe we should ask him be our finance director. Okay, so we will not be having the review this year. I was under the assumption that we were gonna start a review.
Yeah, so that actually got moved into another line item in the budget.
I
So we
forgot that.
actually have
Sorry.
moved, I think it's 34,000 or 35,000 in a different section under the CAO's blanket of budget items.
Perfect. Sorry, you probably said it, I forgot it. Thank you.
That's fine.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other discussion? And if we're ready, we need, okay, moved by Councillor Surratt, seconded by Councillor Bork. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Sewer budgets, operating and capital. These were all approved by the committees, but we have to, we need to have a motion here to accept this. And these were all accepted by at the committee meetings. So we need a motion. Moved by Councillor Digdon, seconded by Councillor Boudreau. Any discussion? Yeah.
Just for clarity on the motion for those reading, listening, and for the clerk, the motion that you've made is the proposed motion, which sets the operating rate for all three, West Pubnico, Wedgeport, and Tuscan. So it's one motion.
One motion for all three, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. East Pubnico Water Utility, there's an attachment. Moved by Councillor Bork. Seconded by Deputy Warden. Any questions or comments? Councillor Surratt.
Sorry about all the questions, but you know me.
That's why we're here.
Right on, really. I see that Middle East, Lower East, and Lower East. How come there's, can you remind me why there's two Lower East? How do they go? Their charge on the water. I figured there was one Lower East that should go to Director of Finance, maybe? Okay.
So if you see there, it does say Lower East, and it says for a 1.5-inch pipe, and the other one says for a 2-inch pipe, so the price is a little bit different based on the size of the pipe.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Fire area rates, 23, 24. And do we have any that are new, or are they year one of one? But these have all been approved by the fire departments themselves, or at their meetings, public meetings. Again, we need a motion for this. Moved by Councillor Saunier. Seconded by Councillor D'Entremont. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Interest rate, date on overdue accounts. I guess it looks like we're not changing the rate. We're trying to keep the rate the same as what it was. Proposed motion is that it's moved that council approve the interest rate of 13% per annum on overdue accounts, and that the current year's property taxes be payable and due by July 31st, 2023, and interest will accrue after that date.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Question called. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Transfer surplus to capital reserve. Again, there's an attachment. And again, I think that was something that was discussed at the previous meeting, and I think we kind of all accepted that. So, I have Councillor Surratt.
I move that the 250,000 of the 22-23 operating surplus be transferred to the capital reserve for a total transfer to the capital reserve of $300,000 for the 22-23 fiscal year.
Moved and seconded by Councillor Sonia. Any discussions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Residential and commercial rates. So I guess the recommendation is that the rates, the tax rate be $1.11 for residential and resource and $2.29 for commercial for the fiscal year 2023-24, and that is without any increase, any change from the previous year.
You answered my question about that.
Oh, okay.
Same.
Okay, yeah, that's the same rate. So it's moved by Councillor Bork, seconded by Councillor Boudreau. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Operating budget. There's a presentation and the budget is there and the presentation is there. We had a presentation on this. Are there any discussion on that before we make a motion? And if not, we would need a motion to approve. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So I would just like to add, based on, before you guys go, and if council wishes to approve it, based on the change that was made this evening for the community hall grant, I just wanted to double check that that's what you guys, we're just going to reduce the amount, including the 2,000 for Club Social des Îles that was already approved. So the budget numbers will change a little bit. I will change those numbers. So you will see your number will be a little bit different. So the number is actually $10,627,093. So if council's ready to make that motion, that's the amount that we're looking to approve, not the one that you guys will see in the presentation.
Councillor Surratt.
Question, just go to the Director of Finance. I see that last year, $9,692,189 was the revenue budget, and we're saying this year $10,628,612. Would that be mostly the assessment that went up?
The bulk of it is, yes.
The bulk of it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we need a motion, if there's no discussion, to approve the operating budget. Moved by Councillor Boudreau, seconded by Councillor Bork. If there's no more discussions, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Operating reserve. There's an attachment. CL.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This one was not presented because it's usually like a last minute kind of adjustment because of some last minute changes to budgets. I want to point out a couple things. So on the attachment itself, you will find it's very little information on it. This is not the operating reserve is basically just like it's like a savings account. It's not a checking account, right? So it's, you know what that means. Like it's in and it's out, but there's not that much going on in terms of activity. However, there are a couple of numbers I'd like to point out, and the fact that they will be changing for you, so that if you wish to approve it, it will not be precisely what you see there today. So first of all, one of the changes that needs to happen is at the bottom of the screen where it says transfer to operations of 181,250. That number, and that's my error, did not contemplate the reduction in Mariner Center funding that came after the last iteration of the budget. So what happened is the operating budget you just passed included the lower number. It included the correct number, but the reserve as presented did not. That number should be changed from 181 to 131,250, a difference of $50,000. So that means that you'll be transferring $50,000 less from the reserve to the operations to run the business. That's good news. So I just want to let you know that amendment will occur. Now, I will say that number will change ever so slightly with your decision here tonight. So because that number will then be reduced even more by about $2,000 or so after the motion you made for the community halls. So do you have that number? So 130,331 is the new number. So I want you to be very clear, like I will be amending this. You can choose to pass it as amended tonight, or you can choose to just see the numbers and approve it at the time. There is no rush either way. There's not going to be any other changes than the ones that I'm about to present to you here, however. The other the interest income on bank balance at 111,250, you'll see that as a revenue. That will remain the same. That's our anticipated interest income on there. And the last number will be the transfer of surplus. That number will be reduced. So because at the end of the year, we like to balance all our budgets, okay? So what happens is you need money to balance, but we anticipate that there might be a surplus that comes out of the year. Now that may or may not happen. So we budget for that particular transfer. So every year we transferred an amount from your operating fund to the reserve, and from the operating fund to capital. We did both of those, and you just passed a motion that said you want to put 250 over into the capital. So yes, lots of numbers flying around in your head, right? So, but the short story is that number will be reduced, and it will be reduced by 50,919. So that number will be adjusted to 19,081. So what does all of this mean? Not a whole heck of a lot, right? But what that basically is saying is that if you broke even in your operations next year, everything was at zero, then there would be $19,000 in the reserve short. You'll be short 19, so you'll have spent 19 out of the reserve to balance. What we're saying is that the probability of you getting that out of a surplus is fairly high. So in order to balance the budget, I just simply show it as 19,081. So a revenue coming from operations of 19,000 and change, interest of 111.2, and an expense of 133.31. That breaks you even. Okay. So apologies for having to like explain those at the last minute. It's an error on my part. We made changes to the big one, but not the small one. So if you're comfortable with those, your income over expenses will not change. It will be budgeted at 0. So that would be the modified budget. If you're prepared to approve that as amended, you may do so today. Or you may say, you know what, I'd rather look at the numbers, but there's 3 numbers. So it's not that complicated. So I'm up to you entirely. That's the presentation.
Councilman.
I guess we had a change when it came to the community halls. There's a few extra dollars there that were freed up. I call it freed up. I guess it's too late now, but if we would have at that point allocated that money somewhere else, would that make the job easier for you guys to balance the budget? Or does it, it's just a bunch of numbers that you guys play with and, you know?
It would be, it's not a very large amount. So we build contingencies in our budget. So, but we hesitate like backing off of those because the contingencies are there for a reason. And more than ever, what we think is going to happen and what actually does are 2 different things, especially in the construction side of things and purchases side of things. So I'm good with this.
Right.
I mean, it's so little money. It doesn't really, we could allocate it somewhere else, but it really matters not to us.
Okay. Yep.
So what is the wish of council? Are we ready to approve this, or do we table it, or?
So moved.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve this. If there's no discussion, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Recognizing Argyle. There's no, capital budget. All right, we don't need that one.
Close enough.
Kyle might disagree.
I know you're trying to make the meeting faster, but
I'm trying to stay within my 45 minutes. I got 2 minutes left. Capital budget. So again, we've had a presentation, and do we need to go over that again in any detail, or what is the wish of council? We've all seen it. I think we're all here for that meeting. What's the wish of council?
I'll make a motion to approve.
You moved,
I'll
okay, it's been
second
moved
it.
to approve and seconded by Councillor Bork, moved by Deputy Warden. Any discussion?
Question.
We
Just
have
one point of clarification for you guys that has to do with the West Pubnico, sorry, I keep saying that, the Wedgeport Sewer Project. It moves at the speed of light, okay? So your budget anticipates more additions than we will likely do. So that's the good news. The capital budget you're about to pass will ensure that you have sufficient funds in your budget to do this project. What we expect is that we will be doing 28 units. We will have that. So we will have that list done. If it's not done already, it will be done rather soon. We will present to you probably via email how we came up with this answer. And I can tell you that credit goes to the Department of Operations, who worked tirelessly. They visited 48 areas between Monday and now. They called people, they contacted people, they asked people if they still wanted to be a part of it. They have gone and done a phenomenal job at communicating with the public in a very short period of time. So I give them full credit for that. That's number one. Number two is the way that we decided to reduce the amount is based almost entirely on the ABLE recommendations on the inadequate septic systems that existed. So the good news, I guess if you want to call it good news, is that we had very close to 28 units that were on the list that were also identified by ABLE as being inadequate. So those would have been our priority list. We are very close to 28. We might be 1 or 2 above that. So there may be some additional work that we have to do, but it's been a mostly positive experience. Obviously, some people are upset, and that's understandable because you can only do what you can do. That being said, we will get the 28. Once we get the 28 finalized, we'll let you know so that you're aware. We won't necessarily give you the addresses because that's a lot of information, and I'm sure that you don't really want to get in the operations, but we will assure you that I'm assuring you that that's how we've made that decision. So we'll present that information to you, of course. Then we go to the contractors, and they will reprice based on the 28 that we've selected. So that's the uncertainty part. We don't know. We think we are confident it will fit within the budget. Very confident that it will fit within the budget. But there maybe we might be pleasantly surprised. And if that's the case, and we have 1 or 2 that are on the edge, we will then come to council and let you know, okay, the project's done. This is what it looked like. This is the results. And what do we do from here? So we're going to do the 28. We're confident we're going to have the 28 done. And then we will take a look at it after that's done and after the costs are in, because there are uncertainties in every single one of these. So while they can price them today, there's contingencies on how many rocks are they going to hit? Are they going to have to blast through stuff? So there are some unknowns here, which is why we're sticking to 28. Now, if we have very good success, that might mean we might go to 29. While unlikely, it may even mean 30, but it would not mean more than that. So that's the update on that project. I appreciate the patience, especially the councillors that are probably getting a lot of calls on this. The federal government did us a big favor by saying, yes, we'll fund it at the same percentage. So that means that the project is a go. The timing of which I cannot say, because that really depends on the contractors and how busy they are. And keep in mind, we've had them wait at least a month. So you know what happens in 30 days in the construction business? A lot. So I'm hoping they're still available to do that in the same time frame.
Councillor Sonia.
Thank you. I guess this is for Ala. Is there any anticipated change in the cost to the 28 that are eligible for this?
Excellent question. The answer is no.
Good.
It's 5,000. That was part of the deal. You know, you're in for a penny and you're in for a pound. It's 5,700. It will be 5,700. We will not be increasing that number. So the decision was to do less, not to charge people more.
Good, thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Are there any other questions or concerns or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, carried. Recognizing Argyle. I'm going to pass this over because there's no attachment, so I'm not sure. Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I believe, and possibly stand corrected, they're recognizing Argyle.
Oh, I'm
is
sorry.
what used to be a
I'm sorry.
councillor's
That's what
report,
it was.
and that, but sort of
That's what
changed
it
the
was,
name there.
yes. Yeah. So does anybody have anything that they want? And Councillor Digdon.
I do. Thank you very much. I've been on council now 6.5 years, and I say it some, I hear it out there a lot in the public, and I want these people here tonight to know Alain and his staff, the job they do for people out there in the public. And that whether it's our building inspectors and that our director of finance, our executive assistant, Scott Surratt, Scott that's behind me, Alex, I hear a lot of good reports, and I'm all over the municipality just because of some of the work I do in that. And as far as recognizing Argyle, I believe these people should be recognized and thanked, and that for the work they do, and that on our behalf.
Okay.
And it still amazes me. I laugh each time I've seen, since I started. Marcia, as quick as we can come up with a question on finances and that, she can come up with an answer. And it still makes me laugh. Like that, you know, and they're all right on. They're all right on. So no. And the only other thing too, I was gonna say, being as though again, and that because of a lot of the work they do, and I feel as though a lot the work that council does, we held the tax rate again at the level that it was. And I would like to see a couple of possibly Facebook posts or whatever put out, and that just explaining that it's going to remain at the rate it was. And also where some of the money goes that we have no control over. Like people, you know, figure, what are you doing with all that money? But a lot of the money that comes in the municipality, we have no control over, and that it's in and out. And you know, if those prices increase, we've got no other choice but to send these people more money. So just so the public would know, that's all. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anybody else? I guess not. Thank you. My report, Warren's report, is attached. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. I did attend the NSFM in Digby. There were some very interesting talks. Some not so much. You know, it's the same as when anyone that we go. There was a lot of there was some sessions on the accomplishments that some of the usually you have someone from the rural municipalities, someone from the town, someone from the regional, and they all have some kind of success story that they tell, and so we listened to that. So it was a pretty good conference for sure. Other than that, unless there's questions on the report. Now we're to committee reports. I guess what we've decided on this one, we weren't sure how long the meeting was going to be, that if anybody we're not going to go committee by committee, but anybody who has anything, if there's any committee report that any one of you feel that they should report on, by all means, just speak up and we can have that. Councillor Tachamon.
I'll speak about YASTA, so Yarmouth Acadian Shores Tourism Association. Lately, the staff have been busy mostly at trade shows. They were in Saltscape. They were at the Lifestyle Show in Yarmouth this past weekend. They've got shows in Boston, New York. Also, the Cat Ferry sales of tickets are up from last year and trending very well so far. A lot of Americans booking tickets, which is great news for us. So anyway, looking forward to a good tourism season coming up this summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? The one thing I can say, and it's not, I guess it's going back to my report, at the NSFM, the warden for the municipality of Clare was there, and he suggested if we could get a meeting with their council to talk about what's going on with Congrès. From what he said, I don't think they know much more than what we know. And he suggested that it might be a good idea to have that, and to have maybe someone from the Congrès to come and speak to us about where they stand, and they're willing to come here if we want to have a meeting, is what he said. So,
I guess further to my talk about tourism and Yarmouth Acadian Shores, that they were at Saltscape and at the Lifestyle Show in Yarmouth. Congrès had a booth right next to Yarmouth and Acadian Shores, so they are out there promoting the Congrès. As far as, the politics behind it and all that, I don't know much either,
Right.
so.
Exactly.
But it's probably a good idea that we get together and, have somebody from that organization come and explain where they're at and all that, so we kind of get a handle on how things are going, so, thank you.
And it would probably be good to know what Claire, I mean, I'm sure they're organizing something, but he didn't have a whole lot of information either. So if you're ready to meet, I can contact him and we can set some kind of a date to come together and see what's going on. It's coming faster than we realize. When we started and we looked 5 years, we're not 5 years anymore. We're here. It's here. Councillor Bork.
Yeah, I would appreciate that we have a meeting with Claire. It's true, nobody knows much what's going on. We are having a meeting at the hall, our Eastside Community Center, next Thursday. Everybody's invited, doesn't matter what name you are. It's mainly for the Pumlico areas, but if you want to come, we did invite Sally Madden to come to see if she can give us any information, because in 2004, we had prepared 2-3 years in advance for our family reunions, and nothing has been done for nothing. So we're gonna have a meeting, and we're gonna see what the people want to do. If they want to organize anything, we're gonna have something going on. We're gonna have people coming here, and if there's nothing organized, and we don't know if there's any money available to help us do anything. So that's another problem too. So I guess we're kind of late fundraising money. So I guess it's going to have to be organized things that you have to pay to come and see, I guess, more or less. That's what it sounds like. So
I know from what I've heard is they're having a hard time getting people to organize family gatherings. When you look at the last one, there were family gatherings for almost everybody, right? We had them everywhere. But the people that organized that, we're looking at 20 years ago, right? And these people are just not up to doing that, right? As much as they were back 20 years ago. And I don't know if it's the younger group that is not, the interest isn't there. Nobody seems to want to take charge and organize. I know some people are saying they would like to have one, but they'll help, but they won't organize. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know what I have in my throat, but it's still there.
It's an ice cube.
It's the ice cube. I think you would think it'd be melted by now, but I guess not. Dry is dry. It's dry, like a dry ice. I'm gonna get a nickname before this is done. So I would say that there are some things that the municipality has planned to do and is doing, whether or not we have information from the CMA. So we know there's certain things that we can do. I just want to highlight certain things that have been raised by leadership as well as in the strategic plan that you should be aware of. Number one, we are looking at beautification. We are looking at the possibility of, banners, flags, other types of beautification. The idea of flowers has been raised by actually some other organizations quite excited about doing beautification, and have had a solid reputation as being high quality, what's it called, communities in bloom type organizations, or precisely that one, I guess. So there's that going on. We still there could be funding for that. We don't know exactly what the SAMA can do on that, but that's an option. What has been completed is a review of the community halls that was done by our Director of Protective Services. He's reviewed each of them along with Mitch, our bylaw enforcement, just to see, okay, are you compliant with fire? Are there basic things that the community halls should have in anticipation? Not knowing where the activities are going to be or whether any of those community halls will host those, it felt the right thing to do to be proactive to make sure that they had appropriate, at least basic facilities, etc. So each of them have been contacted, as well as the schools. The schools were contacted by Renee saying, okay, it's coming. Your contact is CMA. We're basically just, you know, uh, helping them shake hands and have a conversation, because really that's not our jurisdiction at all. Schools are different. So that's been done. We do have on the horizon a billeting program. We need to establish a list of potential homes that could accept people. We know that if the numbers are correct, it's a lot more than the beds can handle. So there's camping options. We don't have that many, but there are some in the region, as well as other people that take on family members. So while there might be 10, 15,000 people coming in our area, maybe 10,000 of them are actually relatives and they already have a place to stay. So there's still some uncertainty there, but we're going to create a bed bank or a billeting bank, much like Claire did for the cycling competition, or sorry, the Grand Fondo. Yes, of course, that's the right name. So that's going to be done. There are other things that we are considering. So we can participate in increasing community pride and community information about the project of the SAMA. That's starting to happen, but it's their responsibility primarily, but this is our community. So, we want to make sure that we can participate in that as well, in terms of like, what can we do to increase the visibility of the project? What is going to happen in the project? So we don't have a list of activities yet. I'll leave it at that. But we feel like it's closing in, because people need to know well in advance to plan their trip. So there will be some big events, the location of which have not been officially announced, but they're anticipating a lot of things, including safety considerations, et cetera, in that decision. So I can respect it might take a while. And I'd say that's about it. I'm sure I missed something, but I want you to, I guess, as a council, in absence of information, we haven't been standing still. We have been doing some things that we know that we would have to do regardless. We have made contact with their safety officer. I think they hired a former RCMP officer, Mr. Surrett, to lead that. So there's more than a year of work associated with, well, what, the health authority, what do they need to know about people coming in, your ambulances, your fire departments. There's all sorts of preparation that needs to happen there. They'll have to make an arrangement, I think, for ambulances that might be a little different than 20 years ago. So anyway, I could go on. I'm going to stop there. I just want to let you know that there are some things happening.
Okay, that's good to know. Councillor Surratt.
Judge, just to add to a few things, in our little spot in Surratt's Island that we rent, we had, believe it or not, January, February this year, 5 people that were looking to book our place. 2 from Louisiana, 1 from Quebec, and 1 from New Brunswick, 2 from New Brunswick. So, you don't know, but it's already booked. My family's coming down. So it was already booked. But just to let you know, it's our small place. Can you imagine that? There'll be a lot of people. Also, I'll add on that 2 of the clubs down my way are booked for 2 weeks. And it's the CMA that booked them. But my wife's involved. The club down home, they don't know for what, but they're booked.
Okay.
They booked the places and paid. They're going to pay them and everything. So those 2 places are booked. There's something. They must be planning, but a little lack on information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Woodrow.
Thank you, Warden. Alain, how much money was allocated, like, for the COGRA by the federal and provincial government?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I'm not sure. I'd be guessing. I could find the answer by looking at it up quickly. I'll start by what our commitment was, and it was 500,000. And so we've been paying 50,000 a year for quite a few years. The budget you just passed is the final year of payment. So next year when you're talking about community halls and all that stuff that you might be talking about, you might find yourself $50,000 cleared up because we will have made that payment, the final payment by then.
You said 500, I thought it was 250.
Sorry, it's 500 between both. It's 250.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
quite right to
Okay.
clarify that. It's 250 for us, 500 total between Clare and Argyle.
That's right.
We were paying, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 5 of 50, right? We made 5 payments of 50 and we're on payment 5.
So where is that money going? Like,
That one again is difficult to answer accurately because I'm not privy to the details of that. But I would say that all of the money, including federal, provincial, and ours, would go towards programming. It would go towards promotion, marketing, travel, and related, like all the promotion of the event. It goes towards the payment of a 2 or 3. It's 2 for sure. It might even be 3 massive concert events.
okay.
They usually have the August 15th celebrations. They have an opening and a closing. The big one, I think, is the 15th of August, if I recall correctly. Now, all of this requires coordination, so it's salary, it's rent, it's all of those types of costs. Now, they would tell you that the family reunions are one that they coordinate, but not one they necessarily fund through their budget. So they might help you if you're a Boudreaux, you happen to be one, and you want a family reunion, they'll help you through it. But I think it's really incumbent upon the families to get some of that going. I know that Sally Kenny was hired as that person, so the coordination is available for those families. How deep it goes, I couldn't say for sure, but that's definitely there.
Thank you.
Do you remember the funding? Oh.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just to add to your question, I think the budget is close to 9 million for the Congrès Mondial.
Okay.
And they had made the announcement last year at the Village Historique in Pamlico. The federal had given up 4.6 and the province had put in 2.5. Yeah, 2.5 from Acadian Affairs. So that was a total of 7.1.
Yeah.
So there's still need to make up 2 million there, but there's sponsorship and then there's other ways of them generating income.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and some of the events, I think, it's paid, like it's not a free event, like people have to pay to, so they pay for themselves. Councillor Sonia.
Thank you. Is there a way of having a real number on the anticipated people coming? I know that most of them are Surrett's going to Surrett's Island, but we talk about lodging, and that can be a huge problem. And if you had a number, you could at the very least kind of plan on that somewhat. And this lodging would go a lot further than Argyle and Clare, I guarantee it. So would that include, Barrington, Yarmouth, of course, but there's, it'd be nice to know if you could get some kind of a real number.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Thanks for the question. And I don't know if I can answer it exactly like you want a number. If you remember the presentation from Von Madden, the executive director of Congrès Mondial, at the time, she had a difficult time to actually give us a number because they've tracked down how many people do show up at previous, but Ted Sonia may have gone to 5 events, so they've counted you 5 times in that. So, the initial, I think, could have been roughly around 30, but really they think maybe it's more around 10 to 15 and maybe even lower. There's still not going to be enough lodging in the Argyle or in the town, so you'll probably have to live in the Barrington, the Shelburne areas for some of these folks, for sure.
Okay.
Councillor Armstrong.
Ted, I guess I just Googled how many people are coming to the Acadian Congress, and Google answered, says $7.6 million for World Acadian Congress. That was probably federal and provincial, and plus our contribution would be 7.6. Expected to draw 30,000 first-time visitors to Nova Scotia in 2024. So if we have 30,000 first-time visitors that show up, you're right, we're gonna need lodging probably from Halifax to Kentville, so. Anyway, people will have to stay wherever they can, right? So that's just, and probably when we had it in, was it 2004 here?
Yeah.
In Nova Scotia, it was in Nova Scotia, so it was spread out, right? So this time it's a little bit more concentrated on this end, so there'll be some people around, guaranteed.
Councillor Bork.
Yeah, just to answer to your question about lodging, in 2004, we did book a lot of people in Woods Harbor, Shag Harbor, Cape Island, and those places. They were giving me their coordinate, their numbers, so if anybody wanted to stay, and they were fully booked.
Thank you for, okay,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, go ahead, Councillor Surratt.
Oh, I just wanted to remind, I think I told you once at the meeting that the airport is booked for an event. We don't know what it is, but the airport is booked for, and it's gonna be a big event. We've been told that, but it's been kept hush hush, so I don't know exactly what it's gonna be, but it's gonna be a big one. They're probably sleeping there. They're probably.
Okay, Councillor Sonia.
So thank you for letting me speak again. Councillor Bork, according to your last statement about people lodging in Cape Island and all these places, did they sponsor this event back then in 2004?
The people from Woods Harbor, they just opened their houses. They had bed and breakfast, and they gave. They knew there were a lot of people that was coming around, so they opened up their places for people to come in. I mean, you have people from Woods Harbor that are linked to. There's Bellevos in Woods Harbor. They're linked to us, to the Acadians. So they just took advantage of. I don't blame them. They took advantage of making a few bucks for people coming in, and it was very good. We were happy that they did. So, but they didn't. I don't know if Barrington gave us money for the Congrès Mondial in 2004. I don't know. But it was, I was glad that they were opening their houses and their bed and breakfasts and things
Totally,
like
I
that.
agree.
Yeah.
You know, kudos to them for that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is more than just a cultural event. It's a Southwest Nova event,
That's right.
and it's a business event. People are going to make a lot of money here.
Well, 2004, it was across the province.
Yeah.
It was from one end to the other. So
Yeah.
there were everywheres. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no more discussion on that. Let's see where I'm at here. Clerk's report. That's the same report that we put on there every meeting. Don't know if there's any questions. And department head report. Again, that's a continuation of the same report that just keeps, and it just shows, the as it moves forward and the progress of that. Building permit report. That's there for everybody to see. It's back in the same format that we had before, I think, which makes it a little easier to read, and you can look at your district to see what's going on. Don't know if there's any questions on that one. For decision or discussion, the Yarmouth Airport Agreement, and that's a letter that was sent to me, and I asked to have it put here. And I can read the letter. Council is very pleased that the Mariner Centre Agreement has been approved by all partners. The entire process was certainly one of the most complicated pieces of work Yarmouth County municipalities have partnered on to date. I would like to draw your attention now to the airport file. The Airport International Airport Agreement has been on the table as not complete for several years. Modi Council their concern around this rest in notes of to the audited financial statement and risk or exposure to the airport board in fully recognizing or realizing meaningful opportunities to meet the mandate given them by the councils. As a reminder, the airport board received the following mandate in August 2020. The councils collectively agreed to extend the agreement to March 2021. Each council confirmed their contributions to the municipal subsidy, and the board was authorized to right-size the airport. So since that time, the board has worked diligently to identify opportunities to improve revenue streams, reduce the overhead, and develop a relationship with a potential partner at Celtic Air. In addition, the board continues to position the airport as a worthy investment in part of the provincial and federal government. All this to say that should an opportunity for funding or leasing come our way, going concern notes to the financial statements could most certainly weaken the airport's negotiation position. Modi Council has expressed his concern to the Town Council in discussing another agreement negotiation and would like to raise with the Argyle as well. Council vision would be that by the end of the fiscal year, the three municipalities could have a new agreement on the airport, and we have to advise what we're willing to do. So it's true, we haven't had an agreement. I mean, we're still contributing, but we're contributing at the rate that probably that was discussed back when we did have an agreement. I'm not sure where we're at with that, Councillor Surratt.
Being on the board, we've spoke about this a few times, and it should be brought up to the councils to maybe try to get together and discuss if we can't get an agreement put on paper. I'll say that the Celtic Air that he mentions here, relationship with a potential partner in Celtic Air, that would be a miracle if that happens, because they've got their full hands up in Port Hawkesbury. They've had problems with that organization. When our interim manager, Greg Shea, needs some advice, though, they're willing to, he'll call up and they're willing to talk, but you won't see a partnership there. That's not going to happen. But yes, the letter, it has been discussed, and there's been some work done to try to lower the cost, and it is a bit lower. Are we there yet? No, by far. But I think it's going in the right direction. That's my 2 cents worth.
Councillor.
Thank you. So, Councillor Surratt, you talked about last meeting about the getting a task force together. And if that task force was put together, would that help with this agreement?
I would say that with the task force being set up, at least it would give the councils a good idea of they're trying, they're bringing people together and to work to see what can come of the airport. Can we get federal provincial funding like was presented at that one of our meetings here? With the task force, that would help greatly, and which I've passed something on that you, Councillor Sonia, certainly mentioned, getting some, and of course, Councillor Dickton has mentioned quite a few times, but especially you at that other meeting about bringing somebody from Barrington, somebody from Clare, on that task force. That might entice a bit for them to see what's going on. Who knows? But yes, that task force, and we'll be discussing that at our next meeting, which is next week.
Yeah, it appears to me that if you could get that force together, it's going to only help in making decisions, especially if you get anything positive out of it.
That's right.
Because you're going after bigger money, and the best way to do it is with a task force.
Absolutely.
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Dickton.
Thank you. Yes, and by all means, that task force, I think, would be a great thing. And Barrington, you could even go as far as Shelburne and go around the dig, because again, that's where a lot of the people that are using it, as far as the air ambulance, that are flown out of. and that I would not want to see a long-term agreement set up too quick, because it would be much easier then for some of the other parties to say, well, they're going to take care of it anyway. They signed an agreement, so why should we get into it? We're going to, so, again, provincial and federal money, like, they have to realize how far we are, at least provincially, from Halifax, and how the patients have to get there, and same as for your search and rescue and that. So that's the only thing I'd go after too. Thank you.
Councillor Stratt.
I have a question for our CAO. I see he's put, I wasn't aware they're going to put this, but I mean, he didn't tell us exactly what the letter was going to be, but Modi Council's concern around this rest in notes to the audited financial statement and risk or exposure to the airport board in fully resign meaningful opportunities to meet the mandate. Would that be correct? Is that an exposure? Is it, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, it's certainly an exposure from the perspective of the auditor. So what the auditor is looking for is where are you getting your money? And if you don't have an agreement with your major funder, then the question they would ask is, are you what they call a going concern? A going concern, by definition, is a company is assumed to continue to keep going. If they cannot come to that conclusion, if they think that this thing is going to close, everything that they value in terms of like cash and assets and everything changes entirely, because then it becomes like, what can you get if you close, right? So then it assumes that you're going to be dissolving and getting rid of the assets and paying off their debts. That's not the case here, I don't think. I think that every year we've approved an amount. Every year we've approved, but we just don't have a formalized agreement. The auditors don't like that because it doesn't give them the certainty that they would require. So the risk that he refers to, I'm not sure if it's a business risk, but it is definitely an audit risk. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so where do we go with this now? Do we meet with the town and the municipality to at least discuss the next steps? That we should probably have something, and like Councillor Digdon said, perhaps a long-term one is not the ideal, but at least to have something there for the time being. So it would just be a matter of getting together. Would it be just the CAOs? Would it be the council as a whole, or how would we handle that?
There's a variety of ways you can handle it. I think that we tried to negotiate an agreement in the past, and it was clunky. Because there was, it was a different time. I'll just say that it was a different time, and we couldn't really land on an agreement. And I think the attitude towards the airport was mixed by some of the parties, including ourselves. So it was difficult to negotiate that one effectively because there was a lot of uncertainty, as you know. And then we started getting into the fact that somebody else was coming in and potentially managing. And so many things have changed. And I know that the airport has had a lot of ups and maybe even a little bit more downs. So I think that I would consider this to be a restart. And if it is a restart, then I would recommend that council and staff be present for the initial meeting. Even just to talk openly about what the objectives might be, what you're thinking. The CAOs can negotiate an agreement, but having the councillors in the room, whether it's the warden representing council or a broader group, will give us the information that we seek in order to effectively negotiate. I think, like, what are your intentions? So I can guess, and we can probably get close, and then you can tell us how wrong we are. But I think having that initial conversation, in my mind, would be the best. And I think it's good faith, like it's the right step forward. So even just the warden and the CAO and the mayor and CAO warden, like of all three, get together and have just an open conversation about what are our objectives here. That would be what I would recommend as a beginning point. And then if other things needed to be added or escalated, we could then go there.
Okay.
But I guess I would recommend against just the 3 CAOs.
Okay. Deputy Warden.
Thank you. That's kind of what I was thinking. It feels like we almost need a refresh. It feels like it's been a while since we really had an in-depth conversation about the airport, because it kept getting pushed aside and pushed aside and pushed aside. So once that meeting happens, I think it would be good if we all met though at the same time, once that information is out, so that every council gets the same message. Because sometimes if you're just within your own council, the way you perceive something isn't necessarily the way another council perceives it. So I think it's important that we, once, those boundaries are set, that we all are together at the same time to get that message. That's what I think.
Okay. So we should probably set up something in the near future to at least, like you said, the CAOs and the wardens and the mayor, to just start the conversation going, but have a meeting in a location where we can all meet and have a meeting with all 3 councils. Is that correct? Am I correct in saying that? I would say, oh, sorry, Councillor Surratt.
I was just gonna say, I can arrange to the board, and the board gets that meeting going. If it would be easier for all of you, since the board is sending the letter, why
Yes.
don't we get the board and we're having our meeting next week?
Okay. Well,
If there's no objections to that,
that's
I
okay.
certainly get that ball
Sure.
rolling,
Okay,
and you'll all be notified.
because the letter comes from, well, it comes from the chair.
In the chair, yeah.
Comes from the
So,
chair. Yeah.
okay, I'm very willing. I don't know if you want a motion, or I think,
I don't know that we need a motion.
Really, I don't think we do.
As long as we all agree that you bring it up
Okay.
and
Yeah.
take it from
we'll
there.
move it from there.
Yeah.
Great.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
Thank you.
Sounds good with everybody?
Yep.
Okay. Correspondence, the low income tax exemption application. We kind of revised it, and it looks like it covered a lot more people. And I think that was a concern that we had, that we were kind of missing some people, and with the cost of living going up and whatever. And I think it did. It looks like it worked for that. So, any questions on that? Oh, I thought you were turning it on, turning it off. Okay, so we're good with that one. Agenda topics for next meeting, notice of motion, anybody? Question period, nothing? Are we getting fewer people watching these? We used to have questions after these meetings, and now we don't seem to hear from anybody. Well, that brings us to the end of our agenda, so meeting is adjourned.